Dear friends and followers, thank you so much for the feedback I got on the last video. I'm really blown away by the number of people who watched it and the number of comments I got and the number of questions you sent me. That really, wow, that was a surprise for me that so many of you were so curious about my life here in Japan and how things are in this country. That was really unexpected, and I'm really grateful for all the questions that you sent. Since I enjoyed making that video so much, I thought, well, why not make another one? And in this one I will answer some of those questions that I got, namely two of them. Wow, sorry, it's a bit windy here. I hope you can hear me well. I'm recording this as I'm walking, so okay, too windy. Okay, now it's a little bit calmer. Yeah, so many of you were curious to know more about the language situation, how I managed to move to Japan, and if I speak the language or if that's even necessary if you want to move here. And the simple answer to that is it depends. Like, there's lots of people in Japan who have lived here even longer than I have and who don't speak much Japanese. So it's definitely possible to survive here without the language. Most Japanese people can understand basic English, but yeah, only very basic. And most jobs except teaching English require at least some degree of Japanese language understanding. So if you want to have a good and enjoyable life here and be free to do whatever you want, then yes, you do need to learn the language. But if you just want to come here for a while and try it out, especially if you're from a native English speaking country, then you can probably do it without learning that much Japanese. In my case, when I first came here, I didn't know any Japanese. And when I fell in love with this country and decided to move here, I made it my first priority to learn the language. So I went to a language school for 1 year. I was initially planning to go 2 years, but for different reasons that ended up being just 1 year. And actually my last day in school was the day of the big tsunami and earthquake in 2011. But I went to a full-time course, which meant 4 hours in school every day, and then we were also expected to do quite a bit of homework after that. So it was quite demanding. Some of my classmates, they had part-time jobs on the side, but I saw quite a few of them struggle a lot, so it's not recommended. Like, if you can, I think it's best to dedicate yourself fully for at least a year if you want to learn enough Japanese to actually have some practical use of the language you've learned. If you want to if you want to work in a Japanese company with Japanese colleagues in a job where the Japanese language is the one primarily spoken, I don't think that 1 year is enough. You probably need something closer to 1.5 years or ideally 2 years. Then I think you can learn enough to be considered good enough for most employers. But of course, it depends on the company and it depends on what you want to do. Some people come here or they plan to study Japanese on their own, and I'm sure that's also an option, especially if you're very diligent and if you're very ambitious or just in general very good at languages. There's tons of resources online these days, and you can, for example, you can even hire a teacher through Skype and take private lessons for maybe just an hour or two every week, and then combine that with self-studies. That's probably also a perfectly fine option. Wow, this place is quite cool. So I'm actually on Odaiba right now. I just finished filming a walking video here, and now I'm on our way back to the station that will take me home. So yeah, language, you don't have to learn it, but if you want to live here for a longer time, you probably should. And being able to communicate with local people will just make everything so much easier and much more enjoyable. So I highly recommend it if you can. The other question that I got, one of many, but the other question that I want to address in this video is about the housing situation in Tokyo. A lot of you seem to be very curious about that, and I would say there's good news and there's bad news. The good thing about the housing situation here in Japan is that there's a lot of available apartments basically everywhere in the city, and there's also a wide range of budgets, so you can probably find something that will fit your wallet. And compared to other major international cities, I would say that Tokyo is probably relatively affordable. I would say the cheapest apartment that you can find, and that is actually what I would consider livable, those maybe start at, like, depending on the location, but maybe from 60,000 yen a month, or that's about $600. That would be like a tiny place, like less than maybe around 18 square meters, with a tiny kitchen corner in a one-room studio apartment, and it would probably be in a building that's a little bit older and maybe 10 to 15 or even 20 minutes away from the nearest train station. But it also depends on the location. Obviously, attractive areas in central Tokyo are way more expensive than if you can accept living a short train ride away from the city center. Like, just being 15-20 minutes away from Shibuya or Shinjuku rather than at Shibuya or Shinjuku will probably almost cut apartment prices in half. If you're a family or you need a bigger place, like say 50, 60, 70 square meters, then obviously things are going to be more expensive. And I would say the price range for like a decent place, maybe you can find something for like 150,000 yen a month, which would be $1,500. But probably if you have 250,000 yen a month budget, then your options will be more. You will have many more options and much higher quality apartments available for you. Wow, this place is really cool this time of the day. I really like this skyline. I mean, I don't really come to Odaiba often. It's such a bizarre place. This entire island it's a man-made island. Someone once told me that it's built on garbage. I don't know how true that is, but yeah, it's an island in Tokyo Bay, just a few minutes from Tokyo, downtown Tokyo, but still the vibe here is quite different because you're surrounded by water and you can see the Tokyo skyline over there. That's Tokyo Tower between those high-rise buildings. So anyway, to conclude, the housing situation in Tokyo is not too bad. You can probably find something no matter what budget you have, as long as it's within reasonable expectations. But one pretty nasty thing that I really dislike about the housing situation here in Japan is that a lot of landlords they will just deny you because you're a foreigner. It doesn't matter if you speak fluent Japanese, if you have permanent residency here. Many apartments would be off limits, no matter how, just because the landlord doesn't want a foreign tenant. So that really sucks. And but that's just the way it is, and it doesn't seem to be much in terms of legal protection for that kind of discrimination either. So it's just tough luck, better luck next time, find a better place, find a different landlord. But again, so considering how many apartments there are out there, I'm sure you, like most people, will find something sooner or later. And the whole process of renting an apartment is not too complicated. The only thing that maybe stands out is that you usually need a guarantor, it's called, which is basically someone who guarantees to pay your bills in case of you failing to do so. And usually that person has to be a Japanese national and someone with a stable income as well. So if you don't have any connections like that, you probably have to turn to a guarantor company, because there are many companies who can do that for you, and of course you have to pay them for it. So usually you have to pay them at the time of signing the contract. You have to pay them, I think it's usually 1 month's rent, sometimes maybe just half a month's rent, and that includes, it's kind of like an insurance for the landlord, to make them comfortable enough to have you living in their apartment. And usually the contracts here, they're usually 2-year contracts. So once the contract expires, you have to pay a fee to renew it, and that fee is usually 1 month's rent, can be as high as 2 months. And also when you sign the contract initially, there's a bunch of other fees you need to pay as well. There's usually you have to pay an agent fee to the real estate agent, which is usually 1 or 1.5 months rent, I think. Then there's something called key money, which is basically just a fee to the landlord, and this is also usually between 1 to 2 months rent, although there are apartments that doesn't require key money. And then you also have to pay a security deposit, which also ranges from 1 to 2 months worth of rent, and you will get some of that deposit back when you move out, but the key money you don't get back. That's a basic fee to the landlord. So in all, it can cost you as much as 6 months worth of rent just when you sign the lease, and for some that's a pretty significant chunk of money, which is difficult to find. So that's, yeah, if you plan to move here, make sure that you have enough money in the bank account beforehand. There are some options, like specific foreigner friendly real estate agents that don't require any fees like that, or maybe just 1 month's deposit, but then they have a very limited range of apartments available, so they're not really optimal, but they can work. They usually rent out furnished apartments and where the internet connection, etc., is already set up, so it's a pretty easy and hassle-free way to move in. You can actually, sometimes you can sign the lease and get the keys and move in the same day, so it can be really quick and easy. But yeah, maybe their apartments aren't that great, and you will probably pay a little bit more every month compared to what it would cost you if you went with a regular real estate agent instead. So yeah, I think that's all about the housing situation that I have to share with you right now. I'm sure there's tons of other things you want to know, and there's probably a lot of things I didn't mention. But if you have any more questions, please drop me a message or just a comment below this video, and I will either answer with a comment or in a future video. And well, yeah, here's my station over here that I will hop on the train there, and then it's about 45 minutes or 1 hour maybe until I'm back home for dinner tonight. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, and please let me know if you have any further questions. Thank you so much. Bye.